Hi, my name is Carlo Volpe,
And I'm Desmond Silva,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
Centerville
Centerville
Voice.
Voice.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Centerville Voice. My name is Carlo Volpe, and my good friend Desmond. How are you, Des?
Okay, about you, Carlo?
I'm awesome, Des. Thanks so much, my friend. Guys, welcome back, episode number 18. And tonight we're going to get right back into it. Actually, we're going to take a little bit of a pause. Our last two episodes, we were talking about the Bible. First episode, we were talking about the Ten Commandments, and then the last episode, we were talking about slavery. But we wanted to take a quick pause because recent news in Canada was that Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, has announced basically not a surprise election for a lot of people, but basically a quick election, right? Or a short turnaround time election. And it's coming up. So we want to take a pause to our religious talk and talk about that. Have I got that right? That's
Yep, September 20th, 2021 is the federal election in Canada. And what's happening is that Trudeau's Liberals, they see the polls and it looks like the Liberals are doing well, apparently as far as what the polls say. And because of that, Trudeau has jumped on ship. Okay, this is a good time to do an election. Most of his critics down south, both Democrat and Republican, are actually very critical about this. Washington Post calling Trudeau, like, it said Trudeau should not have the right to call when his election occurs. Which I think is actually a good thing. When the Americans, in this case, are right, we shouldn't have that ability for them to just decide when to have an election. It should be fixed at a fixed time, no matter what, right?
Now, just to put a peg there, this isn't new, right? Has every prime minister had the ability to call it whenever they want?
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of them could do that if they wanted to. I'm guessing it must have been used in the past. I mean, if it happened with Trudeau, I'm not sort of say that has it happened in the past.
Yeah,
but this is one of the few times that it's actually been happening, right?
It's critical. Okay.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe I look back at who was the last prime minister to actually call an election like this, because honestly, I think that Trudeau is way out of touch with what's people are actually thinking about him.
Exactly. And that's what the first thing I think of when I heard the election is, wait a second, that sounds like a confidence move, but it doesn't seem to me, I don't think that he's in a position of confidence. I don't think they're in a great position, but this also speaks to the lunacy or the how out of touch things like the polls may be, right? So if the polls may be saying that he's trending in a favorable manner or he's whatever, but then people I talk to are thinking this guy's crazy, let's get him out. Is this another Hillary Clinton's going to win?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's just another Hillary Clinton's going to win. But the thing is, Trudeau won last time by a slim margin. Actually, he didn't win by a slim margin. He won a minority vote because of some of the seats. It was Andrew Scheer last time who managed to get the majority votes, right?
Yeah.
He had the votes majority, but because of the way things are in down south in southern Ontario, whoever gets the most seats around there ends up winning, which is kind of unfair to the rest of Canada. Honestly, I'm born and raised in Toronto, and even I think that's not fair.
So right? What is it, just to clarify for everybody? Is it because we have more seats down in Toronto area?
Or basically, what the way it works is that the number of seats dictate how basically who has the majority in the government, right? Who ends up becoming the ruling party.
Even if Ontario went more red, is that why?
Sorry, what?
Sorry to interrupt you, but Ontario went more liberal. Is that why?
Ontario is typically more liberal. If you look at Alberta, they'll be more conservative, or further out west, they're more conservative. But Quebec will be always like Bloc Québécois or something like that, right? Or some of them, and you'll get Bloc Québécois liberals like that. But the GTA is predominantly liberal. And that's because you've got a lot of immigrants, especially new immigrants, who are basically don't know the history behind a lot of these parties. Be honest, who many of them don't really understand when they're new to the country, don't really understand what's involved, and end up voting liberal anyways, because the liberals are like, yes, if you vote for us, we'll let your family into this country. Yeah. And it's basically kind of like giving out lollipops for doing what they want.
The liberals are always been kind of typically very open borders, right?
Well, not all the time. They haven't been like that all the time. No, they've been there.
Recently, they seem to be.
Brutal. That's been open borders.
Okay. Yeah, that's
right?
good to point then. Yeah.
Because I can't say that Jean Chrétien was open borders. Jean Chrétien was decent borders, okay? But Trudeau has been like always like way open borders, like Germany type open borders. Okay, and
Okay.
everyone knows what's happened down in Germany. It's gone to crap. The crime rate's gone up because they're not screening anybody, right? Um, if you look at so in Toronto's infrastructure, particularly the road systems, I don't think that the traffic there can get any worse.
Yeah.
If it does, because the thing is, if you go back 10 years ago, before Trudeau was ever in office, the roads in Toronto, Toronto had terrible traffic for a long time. Like I remember when I was living there back in like back in 2010, right? Toronto's traffic was bad as it is during the rush hour. And there wasn't a rush hour, there was a rush period.
Yes.
So it wasn't because the rush traffic started around 4 o'clock p.m. and would end somewhere around 6:30 around there, right? And that was on the evenings. In the mornings, it started around like 8 o'clock and would end around 10, right? Sure. And so it was like 3 hour, roughly about a 3 hour period, at the morning and the evening that you had this rush traffic, right? So much that if you ever worked downtown, the vast majority of people would rather take the transit system rather than going by car, because it's on if you're going downtown, you're taking the Don Valley Parkway. It's really, really tough going back then, not going through that traffic. Now Toronto doing on the 401, on the 401 and most major highways, except for the 407, because that's the ETR, right? The right, the express toll route. So all the people who can afford to go on the ETR are taking the ETR, going as fast as they want to go, right?
That's smart.
That's
good way to go.
There. Yeah. But while everybody else who doesn't want to, who's got a penny pinch, right? Don't want to take the ATR. Everyone who's taking the other highways, they're in gridlock. They're like in really, really bad rush hour traffic. But the thing is, it's not rush hour; it's a rush day now.
Yeah. So what do you think the root cause of that? Because has the Liberal Party not added or not put money towards infrastructure? Is that what you're kind of saying? Well, the
thing is, the infrastructure, like Toronto's infrastructure is aging as it is.
Yeah,
it was aging back in 2010. They needed changes to the downtown electrical system, the pipelines, and all that stuff. I remember there was one story about a man who stepped on a metal panel out on the sidewalk, and apparently this thing had some connection to some electricity, right? And he got shocked. He suffered electrical shock, right? Wow. And so there was a big thing about this was, I think, was roughly around the time that what's his name? That Ford was the mayor of Toronto. They were, so yeah, it was not really it was at that time, it was not in really good shape. But now add on to the fact that Trudeau added open borders, and from that time onwards, guess where all the immigrants went? Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. That's where they always go. They don't spread out. They always congregate in those three major cities, because that's where the majority of people who are of various different ethnic backgrounds live, right? Yeah. So they're more because they're more likely to find their ethnic background and of their nation in those countries, and so they can find people of their community. And so they'll stick around there. It's their kids that will eventually start to mix and go out to other areas, right? But parents, the first generation, will typically, regardless of whether they're, from Italian to Jamaican to Spanish or Indian or whatever, it doesn't matter. Nigerian, they'll all stick close by to where their national community is, and they'll stick to that community. So you have this huge amount of traffic now that's in Toronto with the increased population. Now, a lot of these people are not being properly screened, and you end up with certain people who have, with certain people who may not who don't need to be there, or not may not be in there for the right reason or who are on welfare. Good example, I know of one lady who I know who works for Salvation Army. Now she came in. Now she's from India. She came in legally. Okay, she came in through the proper channels. Her and her family were screened, right? And that she was working at the her and her husband never went on welfare. They got their own home. They had their own job, and they were doing well for themselves.
Mhm.
And they came through the proper channels, and she was working at the Salvation Army. And what happened is there are a lot through those policies, you end up with a lot of immigrants that can go straight to welfare
Yeah.
on in the current system that's there, right?
Well, I guess that's the criticism then going to be of the liberal parties, that when you're spending money on immigration, you're not spending money on the roads. You're not spending money on infrastructure.
Exactly. And there's a lot of money that's going to the welfare that should be going to infrastructure.
Well, and exactly. And that's something that maybe we need to point out for a lot of people. A lot of people probably know this, but a lot of people don't know this, that immigration costs a ton of money,
Mhm.
right? Because you're not only just paying for people to come into the country, but now you're paying for people to be into the system. And I'm not shitting on the system at all, but that's expensive, right? And there's, the housing costs, the housing, health costs, the foods, all the stuff. And the idea is that that's supposed to stimulate the economy, right? Immigration.
Yes, it's because of the fact that in Canada, if you look at our birth rates, it's very low by
Yeah.
compared to other countries. The number of people born into this born in this country typically is far numbered by the number of people dying in this country.
Yeah.
So that's why you have a lot of people who are being told, yeah, come on in, whether they're conservative or liberal. Everyone's saying for immigrants to come into the country, and I think I don't see that as a problem,
Mhm.
but trying to get someone who's going to come to this country who's going to be productive in the country is more better, because then
Yeah.
that person's they're gonna stand on their own 2 feet and do with their own means. It's
Yeah.
not going to cost everyone else to keep that person up.
Well, and quite honestly, that's the case in anybody's country, right? It's not just an immigration issue.
Yeah.
Everybody's country would be better off if people were all working and we were all contributing, immigration, right? So absolutely. But I want to ask you, do you think that's going to be a hot topic on this election? Because let's kind of circle back to that. What's going to be the sticking points, or what's going to be the firing
Well,
points?
I think also that like one hot topic right now that probably would be a big issue for especially me being someone who is looking at buying a new home, right? For first time. I'm actually I feel because of COVID, prices have been on straight up, but
Yeah.
it's not just COVID. If you look further back before COVID, years ago, you see in Toronto, housing prices have just gone, just
Oh, yeah.
skyrocket. A house that maybe like back in 2000, maybe like back in 2000 was about 300,000 or something like that. This is just
Yeah.
me giving out a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
Would have now been about like they would have jumped like in 10 years would have been about 500,000, and
Oh,
now
if
that
not
same
more.
house would be 1 million,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
My own auntie, she has a house that she bought for like about $400,000 or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Years ago. And now that house is worth over $1 million. This
Yeah.
is not a brand new house.
Oh, I understand. In the 20 years I've been in Kitchener, Waterloo area here for about 15 years now. And in that time, I've seen houses go from 200,000 to 400,000 to 700,000, like the same house. There are semi homes here, semi detached homes that are going for 400 and $500,000. Like,
Mm.
it blows my mind, right? And so that's a concern. A lot of people don't really know where that's coming from. I don't know how the answer, but definitely what's not going to help that is just more and more and more housing, like kind of uncontrolled purchasing, uncontrolled real estate. That's not going to help, right?
Well,
We need
it's to develop more real estate is fine. The issue is not the
but
real estate.
uncontrolled. We need to somehow regulate it.
Well, regulating, let's put it this way. We can have a free market for housing, but the issue is foreign investors.
That's
Foreign
the thing.
investors, particularly those from China, are coming into Canada. And now let's be honest. The vast majority of people who immigrate from Canada, from China, are not poor. These are typically very well-off people, and they see. And if you look at Toronto, about 10 years ago, when you had the huge influx of people from Hong Kong, you said I think Yeah, about 2005, 2010, roughly around there, right? Scarborough has been predominantly Chinese for quite some time, but the thing is, even to the point where if you go to the banks in Scarborough, even CIBC, RBC, the instant teller has the interface has language selections for English, French, Cantonese, and Mandarin. So
Wow. Okay.
it's very predominant. Even there are churches that have churches and buildings and businesses that have writing solely in Cantonese and Mandarin, not
Wow.
even in English, nothing in English, nothing in
Yeah.
French.
Well,
So it's now the thing is like now me, I really don't have a qualm with it. I could if I look in the store, you can tell okay, it's a grocery store and
yeah.
it's
A
probably
banana's a
Chinese,
banana.
right? Banana is a banana, right?
Yeah. I
And
get it.
it's so you can take a look and you can see what it is. I really don't give a care. It's this is
But the issue with foreign investors is I think we touched on this earlier. Is it the idea of sitting on these houses and not using them?
it's the issue that they're buying a property and then what they're doing is they're renting it out at higher prices to people. So and they're
It's adding to
driving
the jacked market.
they're jacking up the markets up, right? So the prices are getting inflated for housing prices. And that's why on the other side of the fence, you got people who are like, for instance, you got the liberals or, for instance, the Green Party's leader, Ms. Paul over there, who was talking about, affordable housing, universal income, universal health care, and all that stuff. Because genuinely, there are people who can't afford a house very much. Now, that said, it's not impossible to get a house. There are programs such as it's kind of like I think it's a mortgage equity program or something like that.
First time buyers. There's a first time buyer
First time
program.
home buyers, if you
Yep.
happen to have, if for first time home buyers who are buying a home, it's around like, and buying a home and your income is roughly under, I think it's supposed to be under $100,000 a year.
Okay.
And if you have a down payment for a home, the government will match it.
Nice.
The government will match it. Well,
Okay.
not the government, not necessarily the government itself, but I'll post it up on this thing.
Yeah.
But remember this: is the catch. The catch is that the government will give you what they'll match whatever percentage of they'll match whatever down payment you put in. So let's say you put in 20,000, the government puts in 20,000, and then you get a $40,000 down payment on a $400,000 house, right? You put that down, and then the government would get. And then what happens is the government now owns a certain percentage of equity on your home. So when you sell the house, that percentage of what you ended up selling the house for goes to the government.
Okay.
So this is a very good way that the government thinks of making money, because you don't have to pay now, but you're going to have to pay later, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pay a lot more than what you put in before. I mean,
But the government's trying to invest in this. So the government's trying to invest and take advantage of this crazy market.
Exactly. So they like if you go and put in, so like let's say the government put in $20,000 to match your $20,000 payment.
Okay.
Right? The house was $400,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that means the government put in about 5%, right?
Okay.
So let's say the government says that you owe them 5% of the equity on your home. So you go and sell this house 10 years later.
Yeah,
10 years later, that house has gone up to 800,000. Let's see. That's being pretty conservative given the certain circumstances that are here today, right?
Yeah.
So really conservative. So now instead of having to pay the government $20,000 from what you purchased from when you purchased the home, because they gave you 20,000, now you had to give them $40,000 out of the amount of money that you had to that you got from the sale, right?
So what, just to kind of bring us back here, what are the different parties doing or proposing to try and address things like this? Are the conservatives, just to kind of steer us in a different direction, but not the different direction, but are the conservatives trying to regulate foreign investors? Are they trying to say you can't, couldn't they propose something like that?
O'Toole is planning to basically ban foreign investors from investing in single home in regular housing,
unless they're planning on living there or something.
Yeah, exactly. But instead promote them and basically He wants them to invest instead in rental housing that is designated specifically as rental housing. So
Okay.
apartment buildings, for instance,
Yes.
right? Entire apartment. If there's an investor, a foreign investor who wants to buy an entire apartment building, or wants to buy something like rental homes on a
Because then
duplex or whatever, right?
I think then the assumption is going to be, or a forced assumption basically, is that then they have to charge just market value. You can't just charge whatever they want for rent.
Yeah, because there are already because what happens is if they do that, there is rental the regulations for rents that
And it's
would
going to be more market value. It'd be harder to be competitive, right? If you weren't charging market value. So now that I think that's a good approach to do it too. The other thing is that like with the selection, what are some of the other topics? So housing definitely is an issue. I think for me, the whole idea we've been shown over the last couple of months that the liberals were definitely attacking our freedoms, right? Our freedom of speech, freedom, our internet freedom. I think the conservatives hopefully are still standing behind their idea that they really cherish our freedoms. Do you think that's going to be an issue? Is anybody talking about it yet? I
don't think too many people have been talking about it too much as of late, because there are not too many people who have been very vocal about most of the stuff that's there, particularly in this country. Though to say that, and especially with COVID keeping people indoors, you're less likely to see these things happening outdoors, right?
Yeah.
The majority of people who are in Canada aren't. There are people who are in this country who don't wear masks, who don't social distance, who go out and they live their lives however they want to.
Yeah.
And there are people who and it's not just one particular type of person that does this. You can't pin. Okay, right. I can see that. I know this guy by the way he looks, that he's going to be like this. Oh, this guy's conservative. Okay, he's going to be doing this. Oh, this guy is liberal. He's going to be doing like that. Or like you can't really pin it, right?
Well, that's a fair point, because we live in a world where everybody tries to be pinned like that, or not everybody, but it seems like especially social media, right? People seem to be pinned this way, where if you have a criticism about anything with the vaccines or anything with COVID, well, you must be a Trumper, you must be an anti-vaxxer, you must be a this, you must be a that, right? Yeah. And like we started saying this, 17 episodes ago, is that we were the people that we thought we were, like me specifically, I thought I was more liberal. It turns out I'm conservative, right? But I'm not. It's like the parties are switching and the world is switching.
It's not that you're not. It's not that necessarily that you're conservative. You're just left of center, right?
But I'm exactly, and you can hold both sides from both views. To your point as well, is that just because I believe in freedom doesn't mean I don't believe in healthcare, right? Doesn't mean that I don't believe, both sides of the spectrum. But
yeah, in my case, like I do believe in having healthcare with universal healthcare. But the thing is, I also believe that we should also have private healthcare at the same time. The reason why is if you have that with private healthcare, it gives options to those people who can afford it to jump the line and get better healthcare at the private healthcare institutions, which then frees up space at the public healthcare institutions and then shortens the lines.
I would say in turn actually makes the public healthcare system better as well.
Exactly, it does.
There's a natural competitiveness as well, right? That the government, if nobody's going through their healthcare system, that would be an issue, right? But I mean, there's many people going through, so they don't have to worry about that. But yeah, no, I like that idea too. And the idea too that like with this election, I mean, what are the other topics? So what are the other talking points? Do you think people are going to be talking about vaccines? They're talking a little bit right now about mandating vaccines. And I wanted to ask you about that. The Liberals seem to be on board with mandating. The NDP seem to be on board. The Bloc, I don't know. But the Conservatives are kind of sitting on the fence.
I would honestly, mandating vaccines would be probably the worst thing that people could ever do.
I agree.
That is forcing someone to do something against their will that is solely for their own body, for their own body. No other body is involved, okay? Yeah. Then, again, that becomes an issue, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the argument, though. People will say, you're wrong, Desmond. It's not solely for your own body, because if you're unprotected, then that unprotection is multiplied, right? People think that.
People think I can see why people do that. But here's the thing, though. The people who are not taking the vaccine can also quarantine themselves. They can also wear a mask. They can still social distance, right? Even my case, before taking a vaccine, that's what I would do, right? Yeah. So I would wear my mask. I would social distance. I would wash my hands and all that stuff, and I would gather all the information, consult my doctor, and then based on my own good judgment,
Mhm.
be able to decide whether or not I want to take the vaccine, right?
Exactly. And this, I think this is a point that a lot of people are missing, is that if it's supposed to be protecting you, well, then of course it should be your decision. I don't understand how anywhere in the world someone would think that I'm going to force something for you, right? For your protection. Like you said, we don't force condoms. We don't force a lot of things in life that they're not unenforceable, right? Because it's privacy. And this is like, it just doesn't make sense. And, you know, the age-old argument as well is that the people who are worried the most, if they're vaccinated, then they're worried about, you know what I mean? They're taking care of your own worry by being vaccinated. You should be.
And it's, remember, these are the liberals who go around when it comes to abortion. They're shouting, "My body, my choice."
Hey, that's important. No, that's an important point, right? And not only is it my body, my choice, a lot of people stand on the idea it's so private, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
If you're a man, you have no say. Even if you're a woman, you have no say. No matter what, you know, it's my choice. So and, you know, arguably it can easily be called murder, right? So murder is okay, but then forcing to take something that
some medication that person doesn't really have confidence in.
Well, it's arguably not even arguably, it's still by definition experiment, whether it works or not. So to, you know, to say that you're going to force someone to take an experiment, that's Nuremberg stuff. You know, that's Nuremberg code stuff.
Exactly. And now that, and then on top of that, you got to take the boosters now.
Yeah.
Well, because exactly, I'm stopping at the second vaccine, but my second shot. I'm not going for boosters. Like seriously.
Exactly. And I think we'll see that. I think we'll see a lot of people who were hesitant at first, but went through it because, you know, fear, not only fear, but just public responsibility. A lot of people felt like that, right? A lot of these people now, I think over time, are going, what's going on? Like, you know, the theater it's becoming more visible. The theater that's out there that is becoming theater. But to the point about the parties, I thought the Conservative Party would stand right up and say, hey, personal freedom, and they're not. I'm a little disappointed with them.
That is disappointing, and that's why I say that, like, we don't have any good leaders in this country. We don't have any. There's not a single good choice, and the only reason why I'd vote for O'Toole is because the guy has some economic sense, a lot more economic sense than Trudeau does, a lot more economic sense than a lot of the others.
Well, he's a military vet as well. That's awesome. I like that on his resume. What, good or bad, right? I mean, it's admirable. And like you said, like, yeah, he's not as strong as a voice as I thought he would be to be the leader of the party. But and I don't know, the other guys, I mean, I don't know what their stance. It seems to be the other parties are all okay with mandating government mandates. I mean, in my opinion, government mandate is a super slippery slope, right? Because after government mandates, it's going to be okay, but they're going to mandate to tell you what to do with your kids as well. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, they're already trying to do it. I mean, look what they did with the Catholic Church, right? With the teachers' unions. The teachers' union already forced the Catholic Church to fly the gay pride flag, even though the bishops were saying no. And before anyone goes around telling me, oh, it's funded by the government, no, the school system is funded by the taxpayer, and everyone pays for the public school system. Not everybody pays for the Catholic school system. Only Catholics who have their kids in Catholic schools can have their taxes switched from public school over to the Catholic school system.
It's a choice.
As a matter of fact, the Catholic school system is far less funded than the public school system, since that, if you're going to take into effect that the majority of people in this, unless you think that the majority of people in this country are Catholic, which honestly I don't think is the case anymore, right? It's they're probably if let's say even if you had like 70% of the people as non-Catholic, that's 30% of the people in the country being Catholic, which is just me pulling out figure out of my head, on top of my head, which is not really that exact. I can take a look at what the exact number is, but
majority public, probably.
That percentage of, you can take a look at that percentage of taxpayers who are paying for the Catholic school system, whereas the others are, the public school system is paid by everybody else, including Catholics that don't have kids, right? Like I was paying for the public school system for a long time until I had my son, and I then switched my taxes over to the Catholic school system to send him to Catholic school. So it's the money is coming from individual taxpayers, right? It's not oh, this is government funding. It's so the people who are against the Catholic school system and the people who are putting in these types of agendas and stuff like that, they're not even paying into the Catholic school system, and they're telling everyone else that they're telling someone who does pay into it how to operate it. That's
Yeah. Well, exactly. And the problem I have with the problem I have with the whole mandates with the back to the vaccine thing. I mean, I know it's a good comparison because, the government's going to tell a certain group what to do. But if the government is saying how do I even articulate this? It's so fishy. It's so ironic. It's so suspicious that they would mandate all federal employees to get, the vaccine 2 days before they call an election. A hot point in the election. They're having a rush election in 30 days. Maybe there's going to be another lockdown. There's a lot of moving parts here.
yes.
And in the meantime, I think a lot of their supporters, quite honestly, are afraid. I think a lot of them have drunk the Kool-Aid, whatever the right term is. And now they're afraid. And now they're like, well, fearless leader, where can we follow you?
Yeah. And the problem is, if you look at a lot of talking points, famous thing they're doing, universal healthcare, universal income. Okay, universal income. Everybody stay at home.
Yeah,
And now the new thing that's coming out, I think, was that they want to say was you shall own nothing and
be
happy, right? Basically, that people will be able to won't own property anymore. It's slowly. It's not going to happen overnight. No. They're not going to pop out and say, "Oh, yeah, we're going to do it this way." No, what they're going to do it very slowly, and they're going to do it generation after generation after generation after generation until finally, one day we realize, hey, we're not living in a democracy anymore.
And that's when you get a lifelong dictatorship, or it's him and then his son and then his son and then North Korea or China. I mean, I know people think it's crazy. I was talking to somebody online about the idea of, our rights being, taken away and oppressed, and even just neighbor on neighbor. The idea that we're seeing so much of this, comparison to early on Nazis. Like, well, you can't compare Nazis. It's not comparing today to the gas chambers. It's comparing what happened early on, like we were saying, right?
Exactly.
And we need a party. We need not just a conservative party. Every party out there should be fighting for our rights. This is what makes me really angry. The Liberal Party should be for our rights as well, but there should be a liberal spin on it, right? They're not.
They're not anymore.
No.
They used to be with Chrétien, right? Yeah. Chrétien was fine, right? Yeah. But the thing is, it's Trudeau was not. Trudeau was not Chrétien.
Right? So how do we tell? So I think that typical question for my dad. Well, who do you vote for, Carlo? Yeah, tough question, right? The other question is, do you vote for the person or do you vote for the party? I think it's better to vote for the party, because at the end of the day, those policies are going to be, probably what happens, and they're going to get the most support from the party. But at the same time, it can't be understated the value of that strong leader.
Yep. And on top of that, we also look at another thing, like in terms of economy. Okay. Justin Trudeau's famous saying, "Oh, the budget will balance itself." BS. Yeah, Look what happened when it balanced itself. We're in $1 trillion of debt, of debt, and it's just getting worse and worse of worse. Trillions of dollars of debt, and we never had that with Harper.
Yeah.
Right. If we kept on going with Harper's economic methods, it would have slowly gone further up, and we would have gotten into, probably gotten into a surplus. Because remember, Harper was handling well during a recession.
Yeah.
Right. While Obama was struggling to keep the United States up. Right.
Yeah. Right. We were actually in good shape for a while.
We were actually in good shape. I still remember watching the news back when the recession hit, and how Harper was managing to create part-time jobs and service jobs and all these other jobs, try and make sure that people had something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And Canada was kept afloat because of it. There were a lot of people who did lose jobs in the service department, like if you had like a job in IT or something, or even like an IT or tech jobs or something like that. Yeah. There were people who lost their jobs during that time. But you could have easily gone on and got something else if you wanted to switch, right?
That's true. That's true. Even like I was a part of a big group of people that were facing layoffs 2012, 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yep.
And I think most of those people ended up getting jobs in tech still. I was one of the people who kind of jumped ship, but yeah, a lot of people ended up, and we were surviving, right? And then, Trudeau. Yep. But what do we, what do you want to tell people that are listening, that are watching? What do we
Honestly,
want to say?
Trudeau's got to
Because
go.
I think
Let's
so
be
too.
honest.
And even
Trudeau's
if for
got to
people
go.
that are going to say O'Toole might not be the best answer, I think he's better. And in this case, it doesn't matter, who's
We've got
better, if not the
five.
best.
If we look at it this way, okay, Trudeau's got to go. Jagmeet Singh is like liberals 2.0, even though he's NDP, right?
Yeah.
You might as well be having liberal written, have a clothes like his clothing, his turban, and all that stuff. Might as well just have
Sponsored by the
liberal all
Liberal
over it, right?
I know. Up until recently, he's agreed with everything they've said.
Yep, exactly. And now then, but the thing is, the Greens, I don't think Ms. Paul actually has a understanding from an economic standpoint. I don't think she's a good call, right? The Bloc Québécois, for obvious reasons, if they end up getting into the country, getting into the federal government, say bye bye to Quebec, right?
Yeah.
And then we end up with
Quebec Canada will be a different country in that state. Honestly,
country in that state, yeah.
And
then we have the Conservatives, and O'Toole seems to be the least of all the evils, so to speak.
Yeah.
He actually has an understanding of the economic process of the economy and what should be done economically. So he has the knowledge and the plan to actually bring this country up economically, at least.
And let's be honest, can you see him in blackface? Can you see him making a fool of himself in front of the world at our expense? Because Trudeau has done that, right? We need to point that out.
Yes, and then people don't seem to remember that this guy is not. He's not leadership material. Like he is. How would I put it? He's like dynasty material.
Yeah.
He's daddy had a dynasty. He got on his daddy's new name, right?
Yeah. Running on a smile and a nice haircut. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a lot of the women who basically, and probably even certain men, who voted for Trudeau was because he looked good.
He was, that was a running joke. That was a running joke at first, but unfortunately, that was sad because there's a lot more truth to it than
it was true. A lot of young folks would have voted for Trudeau because he was young.
Yeah, exactly. It was appealing because even without being being good looking, but just the appearance of youth.
The appearance of youth is there. He has a silver tongue. He talks in a way that people like to hear. He talks in a way that the Twitter mob likes to hear.
Oh my God. Well, if you think about it, right, and to maybe explain how he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes, he grew up with politicians. He grew up in Ottawa. He grew up in Parliament. Like he grew up with Sussex Drive or whatever, right? He grew up there.
Now you want to talk about career politician? That guy has been a career politician since he was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. So you really want this type of person running the country? I never would want like a career politician. I'd rather have someone who's not a career politician running in office rather than have a career politician.
You're getting close to saying the magic T word that we're not allowed to say. It's exactly why Trump was appealing.
Yeah.
Right. One of the reasons why.
He was not a career politician. He was a businessman.
Now the one guy we have.
Why was it by no, that's right. Sorry, what? Not Doug Ford. Jeez, not Doug Ford wasn't the mayor of Ontario. What was
Rob
it?
Ford.
Was it Rob Ford?
Rob
Ford was the mayor of Toronto. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Doug Ford. Yeah, Doug Ford was the. That's why a lot of people voted for Doug Ford because he was a populist leader. He wasn't a career politician, right? Yeah. Even though his brother wasn't a career politician. They were businessmen. They're owners of Bad Boy, right?
Yeah.
So the one that store in Toronto, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. It's like it's appealing to people to have a fresh perspective. But the other thing we haven't talked about, the other guy we haven't talked about is the guy from the People's Party of Canada. Is the PPC? Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah.
Now he sounds interesting. I can't forget his name. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
We'll put him up.
We'll bring him up.
I remember his face, but and he split off from the Conservative Party last election due to some problems with some issues in the Conservative Party that were there, right?
Okay.
Honestly, I think that maybe the Conservative Party needs another sort of another version of the Reform Party, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, the main guy here, what's the name? I have the website here. Oh, shit. I can't. It's a French guy, right?
Yep.
No, not Yves. Shit, I don't know. I can't remember right now. Sorry. But anyway, let's talk about it because he was a conservative.
Yep.
And
He's still
do you know
conservative.
why?
He's just he split from the party in order to and because they had issues with the PCs, right?
Okay.
There was something to do with Andrew Scheer and some other stuff that was there that he took issues with because they weren't strong enough. And
Yeah.
the thing with Andrew Scheer wasn't strong enough to actually take a stand on conservative issues. Number one issue is abortion, right?
Okay. So these guys are. So he was more conservative then.
He was more conservative than Scheer. So he
Okay.
would have taken a stand on abortion. Guys who would have probably been better suited for the Conservative Party would be like Sloan. Sloan, he would have taken a stand on abortion. If you look at Sloan's what his standpoints are, there are genuinely clear-cut conservative values that he has.
So this guy's Maxime Bernier. That's him.
Maxime Bernier, that's it. Maxime Bernier.
So he's well liked, right? I like him. I think he's got a lot of support. Do you think they're going to gain any ground in this election?
I don't know if they can run. They're not even seen on the faces that are on CBC or something like that, right?
Well, that's the thing. They're not even like even in Wikipedia. They're not even listed as an official. I
No,
mean, they don't have
they're
any
not
seats.
here
Probably,
any-
right?
They're not here this election. Like
They don't have any
they're not
seats.
visible at least, right? If they're there, they're probably on the ballot, but it's pretty well down the ballot.
Yeah,
Right?
it looks like they're running. They're having a campaign, so look out for them, right? If you're in that, and that's another thing, I guess, maybe to kind of public service announcement to everybody is that
Vote
you don't
for
have to vote
Maxime
liberal.
Bernier, yeah.
You don't have to vote liberal. You don't have to vote. What the media, CBC is going to tell you that it's going to be a red storm. CBC and all the other news outlets are going to say that the liberals are highly, highly favored and everybody loves them because everybody supports vaccines and all this stuff, right? But think for yourselves, people. Think for yourselves.
I honestly think that we need to try and do something new. The biggest problem right now is with the PCs is that we have someone who is more center left than center right, right? O'Toole is center left, whether you like it or not, right?
But it's still better than liberal.
We've been seeing this amongst the conservative leaders since Scheer. We've been seeing this slow, gradual move over to the left. And there was actually one, I forgot who, but there was one candidate in the PC runnings that was way far left.
Yeah.
How the heck that guy ended up getting a nomination, I do not know.
Yeah.
That shouldn't
Well,
even.
and I guess the idea too is that if they're a little bit left, but their base is still right, then they still fit into kind of the.
Yeah, but so like now our only option in the PCs is O'Toole, right?
Yeah.
That's because he's the only option.
Yeah.
He's left of center. He's not right of center. He's left of center.
But explain to me, why is he the party leader?
He somehow got voted in, right?
So that's what I'm saying. So if the party leader ends up being someone who is a little more right of center, then the whole party would somehow follow that direction, right?
Yeah.
Or at least the image. That's important.
Yeah. And the key one is, unfortunately, the thing is the key issue is abortion. At least if he would have stated something along that abortion is wrong, and we need to create programs to support women in order for them to give, so that they have more options other than abortion, even if he's not going to make abortion illegal. At least try and come up with the idea to create options for women to choose to basically support their baby and to choose a life, because the vast majority of, if you look at the number of the vast majority of abortions that are done, whether in the US or Canada, over 70% of them are, over 70%, like close to 70, they said like 75 or something like that. It's due to convenience.
Sure.
They're aborting babies because the baby is seen as an inconvenience.
Yeah.
The number that's due to rape and incest, those numbers are like they're like 1%,
Yeah.
0.3%. It's
That's an
really
argument, but that's a old argument, and it'll always be the same. And it's never going to convince anybody, right? It's just a stupid argument that
it
the
is
left.
yeah, it is an argument that is a dumb argument to say, oh, what about rape? What about incest?
So
Say,
it's
oh,
negligible
rape is
almost.
legal. No, like you can make it only legal under certain circumstances, like or certain dire circumstances, because those dire circumstances make up a very small portion of abortions.
Exactly.
Whereas you have, if you're looking at the number of abortions that are every other one that not doesn't have to do with someone dying, doesn't have to do with rape, doesn't have to do with incest.
But here's my question: there's nobody more. But here's my question: there's nobody more right. There's nobody more right than the conservatives.
They are, yeah. The conservatives are right.
Not correct. I mean, there's nobody more to the right of the spectrum than the conservatives.
Yes, that's true.
So if the leader is not, I guess my argument here is that if the leader is not going to put a stand against abortion, the people who are against abortion are still going to vote conservative, aren't they? Because they're not going to vote liberal.
They're not going to vote liberal. They're still going to vote conservative because they don't have no other option.
And so I think the conservatives' approach is going to be, if you open up right on these stances, their idea is to get a broader net.
I think that every single conservative in this country needs to vote for the People's Party. Needs to vote.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and I think and they're not going to this election because they're not going to get any coverage.
Yeah, but they're not going to get any coverage. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
No, but I mean, people are not going to know about them.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right? So, they're not even having any awareness because CBC doesn't want anything to do with this. Even Global, any of our main.
That goes out message to our viewers. Pass this around. Pass this message around. Pass this message around. Every single conservative that's out there in this country that we call home, in this country, Canada, that needs to vote for Poilievre, not for Poilievre, for
Maxime Bernier. But the problem is
Bernier for the People's Party. It needs to go for the People's Party because Maxime Bernier is the only true conservative that's there, right? But the problem is conservatives that are in the PC Party. We have Poilievre that's there. Poilievre would have been a great candidate. If I don't know why the heck, if he was in with Maxime Bernier.
Yeah. So, but here's the problem. If people don't know about the People's Party of Canada, right, and only a few people do, enough people to weaken the vote for the Conservatives, the Liberals can win again. And that's the big worry.
That's the problem. But the thing is, if Conservatives as a whole vote for Maxime Bernier, right? Like, don't listen to the media. The media is going to call him. The media, if they don't agree with him, they're going to call him racist. They're going to call him bigoted. They're going to call him every single name in the book. Look at his policies. That's what matters.
Maybe the Conservative Party needs to bring him back in.
Well, the Conservative Party can bring him back in if he will. They'll try to bring him back in if he wins.
Yes.
Right? But honestly, I think that we need to put our vote behind behind Maxime Bernier. We need to put our vote behind the People's Party of Canada. So to try and get that balance back, because right now we don't have that balance.
That would be a landslide. That would be historic because they have no seats right now. Remember, so the likelihood they have no seats. It's like the Green Party all of a sudden winning. The Green Party has 2 seats.
But yes, but let's say that every single Liberal in this country voted Green. Yeah, right?
That's massive.
What happened if that happened? So that's the big red. Here comes the big green.
Exactly. And that's a good way to wrap this up then. So we need to get everybody that would normally vote Conservative to think about Maxime, to think about the People's Party of Canada, but also the Conservatives need to think about Maxime too, because Maxime's doing something right.
Exactly. And honestly, to the Liberals that are out there, honestly, I would think twice about voting for Trudeau or Jagmeet. Honestly, if you really want to vote on the left, you might as well vote for the Green Party at this rate, right?
I think if you're going to vote for left, think what the left has done, and to think about people like you and I who were considered left.
Yeah,
right?
Like I voted for both Carlo and I, we both voted for Chrétien, right?
Yeah.
So we
voted for Trudeau the first time, even. Believe me.
Yeah, I voted for Trudeau the first time. I voted for Harper, right? Because Harper was a good, strong leader for the longest time. And the only reason probably why Harper lost is because Trudeau was better looking. And Harper was a strong, hard leader.
Yeah.
And because Trudeau was like, oh, let's sing Kumbaya type of scenario.
You're right. And
What?
a lot of people honestly said they had this idea that, oh, this kid is growing up now and now it's his turn. They groomed him his whole life. And it's true, right? But we gave him his chance. 2 terms, time to go. This bad, honestly, I say it all the time, but he's a bad actor and he's time to go.
Yeah. Oh, and he excelled at one thing, was acting.
Yeah.
He proved he is a drama teacher because of the fact that this guy could cry on demand.
Yeah.
Right. Tears on demand. It was a really bad act. His past 6 years have been a really bad act. He needs to go.
Well, and the other thing too is that I want to encourage people, get out and vote. Just vote. Don't just vote anybody. Think about your vote and make it meaningful, but absolutely vote. And I mean, the more people that vote, the more our voices are absolutely heard. Anything else, Des, to wrap this up?
No, all I gotta say is think about who you're voting for. Don't listen to the media. Do your digging. Listen to what they're saying in terms of what their policies are. If people call them racist, if people call them xenophobic, don't listen to them. That doesn't matter. What matters is their policies, because you're not voting for them because you like them as a person. Okay, there are a lot of people who are lousy as a person who ended up doing very well for the country. Good example, if you want to look, those of you who don't know, look for the Bible. In the Bible, the story of 2 sons. The story of 2 sons, meaning there was a man who once had owned a field. He told his eldest son, go work in the field. The son said, no, I will not. But later, he changed his mind and went and worked in his field. The other one, the father, thinking that the older son had not gone, went to his younger son then and said to his younger son, go work in the field. The younger son said, yes, father, I will go. But he didn't, and ended up just spending the day lazing about. Who did the will of and Jesus is the one who was telling, this is a story told by Jesus, the Bible. And Jesus answered, who did the will of his father? To which the people of the day answered, it was the first, right? Then same way it can be applied to everyone else. So we want to make sure that the same thing goes for these politicians. We want to see how much of a good job they can do, not how much of a flowery mouth they have. Okay?
Talk is cheap. Bottom line, talk is cheap.
Yeah, look at their accomplishments, look at their actions, don't look at their words.
All right.
And that's what I gotta say.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for your views and your likes and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, please do and hit the notification bell so you will be notified every Friday. Desmond, thanks, my brother.
We'll see you guys in the next video.
All right. Peace. Hi, and thanks for watching this episode of Centerville Voice. If you like what you see, don't forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, also click on the notifications icon to make sure you'll get notified on all of our new episodes every Friday. By sharing and liking this episode and all of our episodes, it really helps to promote the channel. And by sharing these episodes, it helps to promote our word and get the word out. If you like what you see and hear, please consider becoming one of our supporters on Patreon. 10% of all Patreon supporter donations we receive go directly to our charity of the year. This year, our charity of the year is the Terry Fox Foundation. You can visit us at centervillevoice.com to learn more and engage with us on one of our social media platforms. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you again in the next episode. Peace.